Everybody, welcome back to DeLorean Tech and another Bring a Trailer auction live stream. We have Chris Miles on the line as well. How's it going, Chris?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on.
So, what do you think about this car, this Late-VIN 81? I mean,
It's very nice looking. Stations are really good. Interior is very nice. I mean, we don't see this low miles very often. They pop up every once in a while.
Right. So, $53,000. Any predictions on where this is going to go in the last minute or so of the auction?
Well, if a collector wants it, they might be willing to pay, quite a bit. But if you're going to want to, use the car, there's quite a bit of things that will have to be addressed.
Yeah.
Original.
Yeah.
There's a few items to kind of get it running, it seems like.
Right. It was stored for, it looks like, about 10 years that we know of. Between 99 and 2009. Briefly driven and stored again. Wow, wait a minute. I didn't see that. So from 09 to 2024. It's been in storage for a long time. Makes sense. 1,500 miles. It was probably driven for a little bit in the 80s and 90s. Went into storage and has been basically in storage ever since. Which, really, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you address the known issues. And it's not like you're just rolling dice on something. You've got plenty of photos here, a lot of videos. A lot of these cars have been stored for extended periods of time, but we know the trouble points that would need to be addressed during having a car coming out of storage in order to make it a driving car. Now, obviously, you've got collectors who are just as fine storing it in their collections for another 10 years, right?
Right. It looks like the radiator's been done, and they put some coolant hoses on, so some good maintenance.
Yeah. Well, hopefully
I like the original registration tag from '89. That's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Anything in the
Newport
80s.
Beach.
I like the car. It looks really nice. It's a really nice example, very clean. They fixed the suspension in the front. It wouldn't, if you had, it almost looks like they fixed it in the rear too. They probably brought it down. I didn't really read too much into the auction as far as the modifications that were made to the car. I just haven't had a whole lot of time. I really wanted to do that yesterday. I just didn't have any time. What did you catch? I mean, it's mostly original, but I know they did a few things to it here and there. Probably things that are not unreversible or irreversible to the car. They've got all the original, fuel lines and the stovepipe, and they've got a de-ice plate in there, which is a, that's a later VIN item, I think. Before they started putting those in there for the 81s. It was more the late 81s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, and doesn't have original tires, so those have been changed.
Yeah, it doesn't have the NCTs. I did notice that. And it does not come with the original NCTs, but those are very hard to come by. I know that those would bring in a much higher price if they were able to include those as part of the auction. But the undercarriage looks really nice. I know this is a California car. I think it's a California car from the get-go, right?
It sounds like it, because the original registration says Newport Beach.
Right. So what does that mean then, original California car, and why would that affect the end price? Well, really, it has to do with the atmospheric corrosion. You got an East Coast car. We've noticed quite a bit of atmospheric corrosion, especially throughout the suspension, the undercarriage. With California cars, the drier climate here, you don't have so much of that. But then you add on the fact that this car was stored probably in a climate-controlled environment.
Right. And I don't see like any corrosion on the frame. It looks like it's immaculate.
So let's take a look at the chat here. I'm having a little bit of a streaming issue. Hopefully the stream is coming across okay. So Vincent A is saying that the market is softening up on these cars. Yeah, it kind of softens up and then it kind of goes back. It just depends. I mean, the market on these cars is just so unpredictable, right? I don't know that you can say there's a market in that traditional sense, right? Because these cars are so iconic. They are such a collector's item, right? But then you have the guys who want to drive them too, right? They don't want to just have them sit somewhere. They want to enjoy them because the cars are good. You can turn these into driving, reliable cars. I know a lot of owners, myself included. I love driving this car, and I wouldn't, give it a second thought to drive it long distance, right? So. Right. You have those guys, and then you have the collectors, right, that realize the importance of these cars and what they represent, right? And they are a great example, a great entry into any car enthusiast collection because of that.
I think there's always going to be a demand for them. It just depends on the person.
Oh, so PoyDog81 is pointing out in the chat here that the front and rear springs are red marked OE springs. Red springs are all front springs, yellow front. So they put the front springs to lower the back and then cut the springs to lower the front. Yeah, that's an old school way of doing it.
The chop and swap, as they called it.
There you go, chop and swap. Okay, well, it is what it is. It looks great. It's reversible. It's not like they did anything permanent to the car. Something permanent to the springs, at least the front ones. If you take the front ones, put them in the back, because those springs have a lower spring rate, the back will drop a little bit, maybe 1.5 inches or so. The fronts, you would just take the rears and then stick them in the front, cut those, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the old school way of doing things. We've seen that on a few cars. I think the Edwin's time machine, we restored those to proper rear suspension. We found out, I think they had taken the front springs and put those in the rear. Although I don't remember what they had in the front. I don't remember if those were rear. Yeah, it was kind of, maybe those were aftermarkets or something. Because it didn't look like rear springs in the front that were cut. It just looked like they were like maybe maybe they were the Euro style springs. I don't remember, but yeah, there's different ways of lowering the car. Obviously, the best way to do that would be to purchase proper lowering springs like the iBox springs or KW, DPI. They've got coilovers, that kind of stuff. Yellow are the rears. Okay, thanks for the info. So it comes with a lot of documentation. We're at 56,555 right now. Obviously, the last 2 minutes, we're going to see a lot of activity. And I know, Chris, that you got to go. So thanks for coming on. I don't know if you can stay a little bit longer, but I know you had until 11.
Let's see what happens at this last minute 30. If we get any big bump.
Yeah. A lot of comments. A lot of photos of this car. So let's see what the comments are saying. It looks like quite a few bidders. VBA or VB Autosport. He's been re-uploading or just uploading a lot of new photos during the auction itself as well, which I think is good. It just shows that the seller really cares about, showing off the car and making sure that, the bidders are making an informed decision before they place their bids. Although 58.5 for this is pretty cheap. I mean, I don't know. I'm predicting north of 70 for this one, just because of the miles. It might even go over 80. We may see something back in the 80s again for DeLoreans. The mileage is very low. That is just for collectors. It's a very attractive feature on cars, right? And you see the photos, right? It's a very clean example. I mean, it's got the plastic overflow bottle, right? I mean, you've got a lot of original stuff. If you wanted to make this a Concours car, it wouldn't take much. It would not take much at all.
There's some old service records that they listed. I mean, some of it's dated back in the 90s, so it's not current. But, it looks like when the DeLorean Motor Club was active, they had a shop, and it looks like they brought some stuff to them. Oh yeah, I see an item for lowering the car on the invoice.
Oh, okay. When was that done?
Can't find the date. Looks like 1990.
Okay. Yeah, that's about right. That's when they were doing the chop and swap. VIN 6489, Late-VIN 81, and I sometimes refer to this car as the best of both worlds. So you get the 81 car, which a lot of prospective owners are very, it's a sought-after year because, number one, Back to the Future, right? That's the Back to the Future car was an 81. I wouldn't say it was a Late-VIN 81, but it's an 81, but it was late enough to where it had the grooved hood without the gas flap, which this has as well. But best of both worlds, meaning it was a later VIN 81, which means it was produced later than the majority of the other 81s, which means it probably had better QA, QC before they were shipped over, right, at the factory. A lot of the issues were already worked out, like you see with the 82s and 83s. Would you agree with that, Chris?
I would, yeah.
So one of the things that I thought, maybe you can confirm this, was the door guide, steel versus plastic. Would this have the steel or the plastic?
Probably still the steel one.
Like the steel ones? Okay.
I don't see a picture of them so far.
Or what about the door straps too? The door straps might be the later style door straps. We'll have to see some of these interior shots.
It has the one piece.
One piece? Okay.
Panel.
So it's only got 1468 miles on it. That's pretty good. Everything inside is original. Carpet looks clean. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to hop off, Todd. Nice chatting.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. Appreciate it, as always. And we'll catch you in the next one, hopefully.
All right.
Thanks again, Chris. Take care, man.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. So that was Chris Miles. Great help to the community, as always. And getting back to the car here, I did want to point out that, with the 81s, you may see some of the features that are kind of inherent to like the 82s and 83s. I was trying to find out, and it looks to me like it's the old style door straps, but I just didn't see a photo here. At least not something clear enough. But let's take a look at some of these here. Yeah, I can't make that determination. I don't see photos of the door panels here. Or maybe I'm just blind and I can't see it with these small photos here. Well, yeah, they're just not showing it. So that might be something, not really a big deal. Just something I wanted to point out about the... oh, look at this. Yeah, that's the proper VIN number right there, 6489. So this is how you determine the true VIN number of a car, is popping off the headliners here and the doors. You can find out what your actual original VIN number is. This is more relevant to the 82s and 83s, more the 83s than anything else. If you wanted to find that out, we have a video on that. 66,553. 2 minutes, just under 2 minutes left. Trying to find those door panel photos. I just don't see any. I must be blind. There's probably one in here, and I'm just not zeroing in on it. So, let's see here. Maybe we could just ask that question in their chat. I feel like we're going to end up going long on this one. Again, I'm predicting about 80,000 on this. So, we'll see. But very clean car. Very clean car. The transmission's pretty clean there. Front end, front frame extension, very clean as well. Suspension looks very clean as well. There's the red marks on the springs that we pointed out a little bit earlier. Here's the rear suspension. It's got the original rear suspension going on there. It's got the red marker. So that's the I think it's indicative of the front. So if the rears were used in the front, then you might see yellow. So maybe they just cut the coils in the front. I don't know. Original fans and fan shroud. A little bit of scrapage here on the epoxy. So that would need to be addressed to avoid any sort of invasive corrosion. It's got the original, looks like the Ducelier, or the the Ducelier muffler or alternator. Actually, no, that's the 90 amp, the Motorola. Ducelier is in the front of the very early VINs. That looks pretty clean, that transmission. Very nice. Where are we at on this auction? 69,553. 2 minutes to go. Yeah, very clean. The epoxy is very, very good shape. Indicative of a California car and a car that was stored in a good environment. Yeah, everything looks very original here, with the exception again of the springs, the tires. I don't see a whole lot of anything different from the car. Let's see what the chat has to say. So Vincent's predicting 65. Yeah, so we're a little north of that now. Wonder if this will reach a reserve. The softer market. Nice example. So it's a soft market, but this is a very low mile car. So this might prove to be the exception. Of course, we'll let the market decide, right? Yeah, and this one might not meet reserve. I guess it depends, right? So I don't know what the seller is looking to get for this car. I didn't really research too much of the history on where this car was before the auction. Let's take a look at that. So, front bonnet release cable replaced. Tie rod ends replaced. Tires probably need to be replaced before driven. They're older. Let's see here. Let's take a look at. We can look at the Carfax too. Wow. So it had not been inspected for smog since 2008. It failed the first one, no surprise there. They fixed it, and then it passed a subsequent inspection about less than 2 months later. So that's a good sign. Doesn't look like anything was done. This might be the second owner. It's being sold through, looks like a dealer, but I don't know. Let's take a look at, or a collector. Let's take a look at the auction again. $71,000, so we're north of 70. It's got a lot of videos here. So it's got a walk around video. It's got a drive in first and second gear. I don't know why he's just going first and second. It's got another driving video. That's a 5-minute video, so that's probably a good one. For those of you interested in getting this car and turning it into a driving car, updated cold start video. Okay, let's take a look at the driving video. I'm curious. So it's driving along pretty nice. Still has the clock in the dash. That was deleted. Some of the later VIN cars, later year cars. Looks like it has the original Craig radio in there, if I'm mistaken. It's driving pretty good. Short driving first and second, so it looks like he updated his driving video. And I remember some of the comments were asking for a more extended driving video. He's got an updated cold start video. Let's take a look at that. Starts up nice, sounds good. Yeah, it sounds okay to me. After a while, you can tell what sounds right and what doesn't sound right when you're starting up a DeLorean. 75,000, 2 minutes to go. This is getting interesting. So I'm glad I took an early lunch break. These live streams, these auctions, they don't end well in terms of schedule for me, unfortunately. It'd be great if they all took place on a weekend, but I don't know. We normally don't see that. Hey, Big Sarge. Boy Dog, I wonder if this will reach a reserve with a softer market. I'm guessing reserve is probably going to be 80 if there is one. I was expecting this to go above 70, mainly because of the miles. I mean, that's going to bring out your collectors, your deep pockets guys, right? I mean, they want low mile collector cars. This is that, right? I mean, 1,500 miles is basically nothing for a 40 plus year car. Yeah, I had a lot of hunting on the first cold start. Yep. There's just ways of fine tuning that. But the driving videos look good. It's a driving car. Vincent's saying I can't see 80,000. We're about 2,000 away from that. So we'll see what happens. I'm guessing somewhere in the 80s. If this goes over 90, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe a little surprised, but not super surprised because of the miles. Again, if this were like a 20,000 mile car, same everything, right? Then it probably won't go over 80 or even obviously 90. But because of the miles, and that's just icing on the cake right there. That could bring in another 10 to 20,000 over a very similar car with 20, 30, 40,000 miles on it. Is it safe to dry ice blast the undercarriage of a DeLorean? What areas should be avoided? I don't know. That's a good question. I would have to defer to an expert on that. I know someone who uses a toothbrush on her car, and that car is babied. It is a I wouldn't call it a Concours competitor because she's done a lot of sort of like customization to the car, but the car is so clean that you could literally eat off of it, right? I don't think she uses anything exotic like dry ice blasting or anything like that. I would be careful with extreme cleaning techniques on a 40-year-old vintage car because some of the rubber in the undercarriage, on the suspension, the boots, things of that nature, I don't know. I mean, that stuff could be very old, very original if it hasn't been replaced. Of course, the original new old stock rubber is actually pretty good stuff as long as it's been maintained. I just put maybe a few years ago new old stock trailing arm bolt bushings on my car because they're still good after so long. So there's that, but then I would still be cautious about using any extreme sort of cleaning techniques with these cars. It's better to be safe than sorry. You don't want to inadvertently disturb something that was about ready to go, that kind of thing, unless it's a safety item. And then if you can detect and find that stuff and address it, then definitely look at that. But I mean, and as far as like these older cars, you need to do a proper safety inspection on these vehicles anyway. We're almost at 80,000. We're 79.5. The fuel lines, depending on what your goal is with this car. Obviously, if you're going to be driving the car a lot, you're going to use it as a driving vehicle. You want to interact with the community, go to club events, meetups, that kind of thing. You're going to want to address the fuel line situation. If you want to put this back in the storage, so it's part of your cool car collection, go ahead and leave them in there because it's definitely something original to the car. You can actually remove them, keep them. A lot of folks removed the what do you call it? The fan fail, the original fan fail module, and put the fused connection in there. But you keep that. You keep a few of the other safety related items like the overflow bottle. You don't want to keep that in the car. You want to replace that with a proper metal unit. So David Bublitz is saying, don't forget the 5K buyer premium. Yeah, there's that. That's about right. I think it's is it 5%, something like that? I can't remember. If this goes over 80, the market is no longer soft. Well, again, the mileage on this car, I feel like is driving a lot of that, but that's just my opinion. 32,000 for mine in 2020. That's a very good deal. Previous one in 97 for a whopping $10,700. I remember those days. You can get cars between 10 and 15 that were nice cars. 82.5 if we are now we are talking. Yeah, okay. Yep. We're at 82.5 right now. 83,000. Let's take a look at the bidding action going on here and who's actually bidding on this car here. You can get an idea of where this might go just by looking at some of these guys, right? So VB Autosport, a lot of activity there, a lot of listings. So it's someone who has a collection, probably a dealer. They've been on since 2020. A lot of listings, a lot of bids. I mean, a lot of listings. Not too many auction wins though. So I don't know what's going on there. Won a Honda S2000 back in, back in June for 29. A lot of interesting vehicles here for past bids, but a lot of listings as well. Let's take a look at, 88,000. So VB, that didn't last very long. 90,000. Well, we're already at 90. So this has definitely surpassed my prediction of 80. I was thinking somewhere maybe between 80 and 90, but here we are. Again, 1,500 mile car. This could go over 100,000. It is a nice example. 90,000 by Syndro. A lot of bids. One auction win on a Porsche 944 Turbo in 86. So an 80s car fan, obviously. Bid on some motorcycles, too. So we can tell what this guy's into. He may just want this car, Look at this one. It's pretty cool. Oldsmobile Aero Textile Go-Kart. Interesting. All right. 92.5. We're getting to 100,000 pretty quick. Will this break into six figures? You know what? We've got Syndro, Phoebe. Those two are going back and forth. CD Bell looks like he pulled out once we hit to the close to the 80,000 mark. That might have been his sort of limit, his ceiling there. Man. All right, chat. What do we got going on here? 90. Yep. Figure you'll need 15,000 to get it roadworthy. Yeah, at least, maybe more. It's been sitting for a long time, but a lot of the stuff looks to be in really good shape. It's just the internals that you need to worry about. So, you know, obviously start with the fuel system, right? That's where you start on these cars. At this price, park it in a museum. Yeah, I know. I mean, once you start hitting 100,000, we're at 96,000 right now. And 97.5. So we're probably going to get to 100,000 on this car. Again, low miles. I know I keep saying that, but this is really, again, if this were a 50,000 mile car, no, this would have been done a long time ago. Yeah, 100,000 for sure. That's what we're predicting here. So P1 Motor Cars, how's it going? Vincent Poydog, David. Yeah, I think the buyer has to pay a 5%. We're at 99,000. So a 5% increase on top of the sale price by the buyer, if I'm not mistaken. I just think it's sad how worthless our money is today. Prices are coming down. You know, just when you thought prices were coming down and the market was softening, we just surpassed $100,000. And here we are at the 88s again, $100,088. Let's see how far that goes. Man, so 101.88 would be the next one. Let's see if we can get the 101 and $88. So a six-figure car. You know, it's a Late-VIN 81, which is, you know, if you want an 81, the Late-VIN 81 is the one to get. Unless you want a gas flap, right? Then you got to go with an early VIN. That's just how it is. Now, if you want the 81 Back to the Future car, as close to Back to the Future as you can get, the later VIN ones are the way to go. Now, if you're a real purist and you want to get close to the VIN number of the A car, obviously you'll need to go a little higher than the 6000s, right? Or lower than the 6000s. This is a 6, I think this is VIN 64. We're at 101.88. Really curious to see where this is going to go. VB Autosport, who is a dealer apparently, really wants this car. Now, there is the possibility of shill bidding going on in auctions on Bring a Trailer. That's always something to be on the lookout for. Obviously, it's almost impossible to tell unless you spot a profile that was just created, has nothing prior to. Then it becomes a little suspect. But these two bidders here have history here. So, you know, it's safe to say that we got 102.5. It's safe to say that we've got some serious bidding going on here. And you've got a bidding war between Syndro and VB Autosport. And they are well into the 100,000 range now. So 102.5, 103.5. And they are not waiting until the clock is nearing zero. They are just bidding maybe just past the 1 minute mark. So this is very exciting. A lot of comments going on. As the owner of a beautiful DeLorean, I'm loving this. Same here. I mean, this is appropriate, right? I would support north of 100,000 for a low mile, late 81. I mean, there's a lot. This car has a lot going for it. 105,000. Hello, Haggerty. New 83s are the best year. Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. And when we say new 83s, what do we mean? The 20,000 series VINs? 17,000 series VINs? You know, I don't know. All 83s are 82s. It's really 83s are Late-VIN 82s, right? So the best of both worlds, right? You're getting a newer model, right? So not an 81. And the stigma with the 81s is that those were the cars that they cut corners on. And that's why they had to put up the QA, QC centers, right? The Pogs had to work on those cars to get them on the road. The Pogs have said there was no way they were going to let these cars go to dealers before they were gone through, and it was a lot of stuff that they had to fix. Not so much with the Late-VIN 81s, and obviously the 82s and 83s. So we are at 108.5. This may pass the Johnny Carson car. So the Johnny Carson car, if I remember correctly, went to 110,000 back in, I don't remember if that was during COVID or something like that, 2021, somewhere around there. I mean, that was the last kind of stock DeLorean that went for that much. That one, obviously, because it was Johnny Carson's car, right? It took that much. One sold for $243K in 2021. That was the twin turbo V6 Kia Stinger motor that was done by that San Diego shop down there. So that one was a definitely an exception to the rule. It was really more of a DeLorean in terms of just the body and the suspension. Not even the suspension, but everything else other than the motor. The cooling system, everything was upgraded. The transmission was upgraded on that thing. So we have a video on that one. That is what we're calling the Hyper DeLorean 110. So we're at the Johnny Carson car sale price right now. That one went for 110,000. I can't remember exactly when that was. We can take a look at that. We can just open another window here. So 110,000. We're at the Johnny Carson. So if we just search for the history here, right? So DeLorean, you can see kind of where this car, the DMC-12 was. So you can see the chart. Well, where is that chart? They had a chart here. It may be down below or something like that. Well, they used to have a chart here. I'm not seeing it. Actually, we just passed Johnny Carson. So we passed Johnny Carson. We're at 111. Johnny Carson's car, if I'm not mistaken, sold sometime in during COVID or something for 110. I was gonna use their chart to pinpoint it easily, but I don't see that chart on here anymore. There's another one that actually a low mile one that took 106. This surpassed that. That was way back in 22. But prior to that, it was the Johnny Carson car. We had the 888 car. We did a live stream on that one. Time machines, I'm not including that because they will go for more than 100 typically, especially if you have a nice one. Well, the Johnny Carson car, if I can quickly locate that one in here. There it is. Here's the Johnny Carson car that sold back in 2021 for 110. This has surpassed that. We're in the last minute of bidding here, and the current high bidder is Syndra. Wait. Hold on a sec here. Syndra pulled out, so we may end up at 111. Congrats, enjoy. I think that was his ceiling, was the Johnny Carson. We're calling it the Johnny Carson ceiling. Looks like VB Auto Sport is going to get it. By this comment here, Syndra is kind of pulling out. At least that's my assumption. Let's see here. Nah, 83s are the best. Just looked it up. Buyer premium capped at $7,500. So yeah, 118 or so. You got to figure on taxes and stuff. So this is going to be 111, guys. Knockout punch. That's it. Yep, VB won it. So Johnny Carson's record has been officially broken. Congrats to both the buyer and the seller. Well played by VB Autosport. He beat Johnny Carson. Let's see if these guys know what that means. Yep, sold for 111K. 111. So a new record for a basically a stock DeLorean. We're calling it a stock DeLorean. Obviously, if you look at the spread here, and I don't know what happened with that chart they used to have. I don't know what's going on there. They used to have a little chart, like a graph, that showed the spread just on one view of like the auction wins. Let's see if it's in here. Oh, here we go. Found it. Alrighty, so you can see just based on these dots here, the sold and reserve not met cars here. You have the 1065 that we looked at, the 569 mile car. Okay, that was a nice example. 569 is pretty low. Okay, a low mile car will take that much, right? 1065. That was back in 2022, arguably back when prices were a lot higher. You have the Johnny Carson, which I'm saying is the record. That I don't think had a whole lot of, or it was a low mile car. Let's just take a look at it real fast. But we'll look at it in a second here. So if you look at these ones, these are time machines, right? So these two are time machines, and then you have the Nick Reed car, the 81 Kia Turbo, right? Twin turbo V6 swap with all the bells and whistles, fastest DeLorean out there, arguably. Although I'm wondering how this would do against Josh Shattenkirk's LS swapped supercharged DeLorean. I don't know that we'll ever be able to see that, but that would be really cool. I got to ride in both of those cars. They're both ridiculously fast. I've got a video coming out on Josh's car, and I will answer which one I felt was faster in that video. I'm not going to give it away yet. Anyway, back to the chat here. My state, if it's registered as a classic, there's no tax. Hey, that's cool. I wish California were the same. There is an antique. I don't know if that's something that you can get a tax exemption on, but with California, more than likely it's a no. Great for the community. Yeah, it's 111. So this is a benchmark. This is a new record. So it's definitely a cause for celebration. There was another one here. Well, that was a time machine that took the 1015. So that one I'm not counting when we're talking about like stock DeLoreans, right? There's the 888 car that we did a live stream on here was kind of another high-ranking sale. But prior to this, you have the Johnny Carson, and you click on that, and that should get you the Johnny Carson car, and that was a pretty close to the Back to the Future. Only 8,000 miles, so for a DeLorean, 8,000 miles isn't much. Of course, 1,500 miles, that's it definitely says a lot right there. So, congratulations to the winner of this Late-VIN 81 1,500 mile DeLorean. And I've got to punch off here, get back to work. Thanks to the chat for jumping on and watching this with us. Another record has been beaten. It's been a while. It's been about over 3 years since we hit the Johnny Carson record. The Johnny Carson record has been officially broken. And thanks again, everyone else, for tuning in. And hopefully there'll be another one that we could live stream. Once again, everyone, thanks for watching. Appreciate that.